Are we live?
Yeah.
We're live, everybody. Welcome to Red Hoop Talk.
Hello.
Sunday.
Oh God. Yes, it is Sunday, and we're here at Red Hoop Talk. Glad you can join us. And
Glad you can join us. I'm Roy.
Yes, you are, Roy.
From the Adeus clan of the Louisiana Caddos.
And I am Shannon O'Loughlin from the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. And we are here. I'm coming to you from Maryland, otherwise and better known as the original territory of the Piscataway peoples.
The Piscataways. And I am out here in Southern California, and I want to recognize the Chumash Tribe this week because I have so many to choose from. Chumash are near and dear to my heart.
Yes, well, you better say Gabrielino and Tongva.
Well, there's like 30 of them or more, and so I'll be sitting here like the whole show trying to name everybody in the Tongva.
And trying to pronounce everybody, which you cannot pronounce. But, you know, we're going to go back there. We're going to go back to Southern California for our guest, even though she's not in Southern California now. But
she's going to be able to speak to that, though, because she was really close and working with the Tongvas, right? Or no, not
well, she came, she taught at Cal State Long Beach.
Yes.
And so she's very well of Pavagna and other issues that are happening in Southern California and with recognized and non-recognized tribes there. And very much into American Indian education. And that's where I learned all my good stuff was from our guest tonight.
Yeah, she taught all the people that I partied with.
Really? You had people that you partied with?
Well, all of you and your friends, we all partied together. We hung out.
But the term party, like, has
my party. I wasn't really a big, like, you know, it wasn't like we were hanging out on the street corner drinking beer around the barrel or something like that.
No,
but we hung out. And we did
when
things.
You talk about partying, you know, people are really partying, and you know, I was.
No, you maybe it's just you and your mind. Your mind takes the word party. See, everybody has their own. See, party to me isn't a derogatory thing. So maybe you need to look inside you and figure out why party bothered you.
Yes. Okay, I'll do that, Roy. Let's talk about something more important for this evening. So this has been a really interesting week, watching the vice president and Senator Harris debate. Did you watch that?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I was out of town, so I was in a hotel room, and I really wasn't like feeling like just sitting there watching that. It wasn't, you know. Anyway,
there was one interesting thing that happened during that thing.
Oh, I'm sure I know what it's going to be.
That's when the fly.
Which was probably the only interesting thing that happened in that whole thing.
Well, so this fly gets around. From what I understand, the fly also he predicts who will win and lose the election, and so he actually landed on Hillary Clinton's head during one of her debates. And this time he landed on Vice President Pence's head. So if you believe some of the rumors,
would that make him a shithead?
Maybe so.
No, I don't know. I'm just a fly lands on usually, but
it usually means something's pretty stinky. But what was really great about it is there was this millisecond in time when Senator Harris looked over and saw the fly, and just a split second, and you could see in her head, she was like, should I say something? Should I let this go? What should I do with this little nugget of fun? But she played it cool. Yes, and Jim Carrey played the fly on Saturday Night Live, so they redid a little.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
No, I didn't get a chance to see that either, so I haven't seen the fly stuff. And no, I did see it. I was like, that's gonna get a lot of shit.
Yep.
Unintended. And the funny thing is that now the fly has not only like 100 Twitter accounts, but he has like a few TikTok accounts too.
Oh, he has TikTok too? So
Yeah,
I know he has his own Twitter account.
He has TikTok accounts, Twitter accounts, Facebook. He's like become a very big celebrity out there in the internets and the interwebs.
In the internets, yes. And tomorrow is a very important day.
Tomorrow is a very important day. It's Indigenous Peoples Day.
Yes, it is.
Formerly known as the Big C Day.
The Big C Day.
The Big C. The C word.
President Trump has already put out his proclamation on Columbus Day, which did not include anything about Indigenous peoples, but was really I want to bring it up. I'm going to bring it up.
What did you expect from Trump? I mean, that was what was going to come of it anyway.
Well, I think it's really interesting because a lot of people still in Indian country are still thinking about voting for this guy. So this is the proclamation.
Wait. You're telling me that there's actually like real people in Indian country that are thinking about?
Yes, absolutely. And so I really, and I always, when I get an opportunity to talk to those folks, I ask them, what has Trump done in Indian country? What would you like him to do? What do you think he represents in Indian country? And so all I can do is put out information and facts of what I see. And so here he is talking about Columbus Day.
The Big C.
The Big C. And this paragraph, I think, says it all. And it says, sadly, in recent years, radical activists, he's talking about us. He's talking about Indigenous people, have sought to undermine Christopher Columbus's legacy. These extremists, that's us, seek to replace discussion of his vast contributions, raping, pillaging, killing, those kind of things, with talk of failings, his discoveries with atrocities, and his achievements with transgressions, rather than learn from our history this radical ideology and its adherents, that's us, seek to revise it, yes, deprive it of any splendor and mark it inherently.
He didn't write that.
Oh, hell no. No, I don't know who wrote this. It's a bunch of...
He doesn't have that kind of vocabulary. I think it was that Nazi twat guy he's got on his staff. What's his name?
Be nice. I don't know. There's a lot, probably, I'm sure.
I don't have a better name for him. Sorry. I mean, I shouldn't have used that language, but that's what he looks like to me. I just cannot take that guy. He looks like he's a self-loathing person, is what he is.
Yeah. Well, I want to make this clear. So,
okay,
he does call out the folks that are trying to take down the Columbus statues across the country, and he said, "This June, I signed an executive order to ensure that any person or group destroying or vandalizing a federal monument, memorial, or statue is prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law." And that's what he's been doing. He's been prosecuting people who've been protesting and working to take down Columbus statues and other statues that.
Well, he should be prosecuted because he's destroyed the presidency of the United States, which is whatever.
Well, and he had COVID this last week too, right?
Yes, he did. He did get the Rona. He has got the Rona. And a whole bunch of his staff too, Chris Christie and all these other folks are getting it, and they're all the same. You couldn't have wrote this shit. I'm telling you, you couldn't have wrote it.
Well, I'm telling you, I wasn't going to do it because I'm very much against taking prescriptions. I don't like to take drugs. Not that I don't believe in science. But I have been, I swear, since 2016, I have felt just depressed. I felt depressed. And I'm going through that time of life that a woman does when she gets in her 50s. And so the doctor recommended I take some antidepressants. So I've been taking antidepressants, and I'm going to take them. until at least after the election, and depending on who wins, I'm either going to keep taking them or going to stop taking them. That's going to be like, I'll either feel like there's hope for the future, or I'm going to need, probably stronger doses, one or the other.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been, all of us have felt that way since 2016. And I know, hey, by the way, welcome to the chat room. All of you are wonderful. We enjoy all of your input in the chat room. Thank you, each and every single one of you, for all that you do, and for hanging out with us. But yeah, the since 2016, I think that we've all felt that. The one thing that I've held on to was that, understanding a lot of our different Indigenous cultures' stories on the quickening and how things are changing and how it's the end of an age and we're moving into a new age. I knew that this had to happen. I knew that we had to see the worst of it first before we can see an emergence of new, before we can see the spring, before we can see the cycle change, before we can continue around the hoop to the next stage of this. And it was going to get worse. So I kind of always was just sitting back going, it's okay. It's okay. It's going to happen. It's going to end. It's going to blow up in our faces. It's going to get ugly. And then things are going to start to change. Mm-hmm. And, 2020 has been that thing. And it's been very challenging personally for me. I lost my best friend. I lost my father. It was a very challenging year on top of everything else. I mean, it all started with, you
had to start working with me.
I lost my job. My Chihuahua died the same day that, our 15-year-old Chihuahua. And then it just everything snowballed from there. I wasn't working, and then I lost my best friend at Christmas, and then my father. It's 2020, and then of course all of the political stuff was just absolutely insane to even try and watch that. So it was well, just sit back, because this is how it's all supposed to be. This is how it's all supposed to. This is the cycle. This is what's supposed to happen, and this is how it's supposed to be. I have genetically inherited PTSD due to colonialism.
I do. I think we are a little more predisposed to depression and anxiety. I mean, I think it is in our genes. Why? How wouldn't it be?
No, I think that we are born with a cynicism and a PTSD. We're always waiting for the shoe to drop. That's what it always feels like in Indian countries. You're always waiting for the shoe to drop, no matter what is going on that can be, good, or we see things changing, or we see something happening to a tribe, or some repatriation happening or something, or we're always waiting for the shoe to drop. And, and I've become cynical like that. It's doesn't surprise me, like that whole Oklahoma thing and how it went down, Mm-hmm. It was oh yeah, but doesn't surprise me. Why would we? Why would we take back rights and privileges and move forward with them, or use them to strengthen ourselves?
Right.
Why not?
Oh hell. Oh well, and that reminds me of another thing. So EPA just gave Oklahoma supposedly the right to take over environmental regulations from the tribes who just won their rights back in the McGirt case that we've been talking about, which they don't have a right to do. So it just continues. It continues. There's always something. We're always on edge. We always have this lack of security, because there's this schizophrenia about,
mm-hmm.
Whether we have rights, whether we don't have rights.
But it's always been prophesized that we will return, and that we will once again be the stewards of this land, and that we will once again have, control of ourselves, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's coming. I don't know if it's going to be here while I'm here, but it's coming. So I have that to look up to. Well, hey, shouldn't we get our guests on here, because we're sitting here blabbering already, and we should be blabbering with her.
Blabbering?
Yep.
That's a new word for you there, Roy.
Is
yeah.
It?
I'd love to
we should be talking.
I'd love to introduce her. I'd love to introduce our next guest. She was one of my professors back at Cal State University, Long Beach.
She's responsible.
What's that?
So she's one of the ones that's
responsible. She is one of the ones that are responsible for my my big brain here, right? Dr. Mary Ann Jacobs, who's a citizen of the Lumbee Nation, is now living in Pembroke, North Carolina, where she's a professor and director of the she was director of the American Indian Studies Department back at Cal State Long Beach. And now she's teaching at University of North Carolina in Pembroke, where she's teaching American Indian Studies, American Indian identity, education, cultural competency, and the like. Her background is in social work, and she is one of the smartest women I know. I'm so grateful that I've had her in my life and have looked up to her as a professor in the past and a friend now. And let's bring on Mary Ann Jacobs.
Yay. Mary Ann Jacobs. Hello, hello.
Hi.
Welcome to Red Hoop Talk, Mary Ann.
Thank you for having me, Shannon and Roy. I appreciate it.
Oh, welcome. Our pleasure.
How you doing this Sunday?
Good. Good. I've had a good day. I've been great in papers, great in online. Great everything online now.
Is everybody getting a good grade?
No. But a lot of them are.
Oh, man, I hope they're not listening. They're all quaking in their boots right now.
A lot of them are doing good.
That student PTSD just set in.
When does school break? When is that November?
We have a special semester this time because we are on a different schedule because of the coronavirus. We are face-to-face, hybrid, and online, fully online.
Wow. Oh, wow.
We started August 5th, and our classes will end November 12th. And then we'll have a week of final exams, and I have to have grades in by the 23rd.
Oh, wow. So before Thanksgiving. And then school starts back, what, in January?
School will start back in January on the 19th, I believe it is, after Martin Luther King Day. Wow.
Well, I was going to say there's still time to make your grade better in Dr. Jacobs' class, but maybe there's not.
No, if you haven't done anything in Dr. Jacobs' class, it's kind of too late to do.
Oh.
Did you tell your students to watch tonight?
No. No, I did not.
Oh.
Well, I wonder if there's any old students or old friends from Cal State Long Beach or San Diego. Dr. Jacobs used to teach at San Diego, right? And
San Diego State for 2 years, for a hot minute.
Hi. Yeah. So say hi if you know Mary Ann, and tell us where you're coming from. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Mary Ann. Like where did you start your life? What made you want to go into social work and teaching us crazy students?
Wow. Where did I start my life? You want to start at the very beginning?
Start at the very beginning.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I was born in Chicago, Illinois. My parents moved from Pembroke. They got married in Dillon, South Carolina. And my dad came home from the Korean War. They got married in Dillon. And then the same day, they moved up to Chicago. They actually spent the night, I think, with one of my great uncles, my dad's uncle, in Kentucky. And then they went up to start their new life in Chicago. My dad wanted to go to trade school, and North Carolina did not allow Indians to go to trade school. So he had a friend in Prospect who knew of a place who had, graduated from a drafting school in the city, and he gave my dad all of his information, where they rented an apartment, where he got a job, where he went to school. So my dad, got all that information, and they did, stayed in the same apartment house where his friend had stayed, and, he got a job right away, and then he started school.
Wow.
So,
wow. So,
yeah.
so when you were born there, did you live very long in Chicago?
Oh yeah, I lived there until I was 13. That's why I don't have the Lumbee dialect.
There you go.
But we came home a lot. My parents were very dedicated. I'm the last of 8, so I'm number 8.
Wow.
My parents were very dedicated to coming home, and they came home a lot. When people would travel, they would send word that they were coming by, and they would stay with us in Chicago. We moved to my family moved to Maywood when I was 5. Mm-hmm. And mom and dad had wanted to buy a home in Cicero, but they weren't shown any homes there because Daddy said that the real estate person assumed that they were a mixed couple, because my mother was really fair skinned and my dad was really dark. So they wouldn't show them any houses in Cicero to buy. But they were able to purchase a house in Maywood and lived there for 25 years total, 25 in Chicago, and moved home. Went there in 1952, came home in 1977.
Wow.
So I started school here. Not unfamiliar. I mean, I knew my cousins and family here, but it was a real big difference from being there.
So what was it like in the 70s in Pembroke and around in Lumbee land?
Well, it was a small town. There were still a lot of dirt roads, a lot more than there are now. I remember when I was growing up, we didn't have a whole lot of named roads. There were a lot of dirt roads and a lot of them without names. People would get addresses and all the roads would be named. I don't even remember when that happened. I think I was away in college when that happened.
Yeah.
So I might have even moved by the time that happened.
Wow.
So yeah.
Well,
it was rural. People still had a lot of what we call singings, where people would go from church to church, and you wouldn't have any preaching that day. You would just have a singing and maybe a meal together. So it was a lot different, a lot more. It was what I was used to from coming home with my parents. And, every time we'd come, we'd stay 2 weeks. Mom and Daddy always wanted to go visit their family and extended family. So we would go and visit Ken, and Mom and Daddy'd say, yeah, we went there. Don't you remember so-and-so? And I'd go, no, I don't remember. I'd never remember anybody. Unless I saw them frequently enough, I didn't remember from year to year. Because they had such big families. My dad is from a family of 14. There were 7 girls and 7 boys, and my mom's family is a family of 15. So, just have a huge number of first cousins, and then Mom and Daddy. Their extended family is just huge. So. And it was a situation where if, between Mama and Daddy, they knew kinship systems, beyond just who they were related to. They could tell you who was related to families that they knew and grew up with. Okay. The kind of traditional knowledge that I don't have. I mean, I have some of it, but not the way they did. I mean, they just had an extensive memory of all of these familial relationships. And it was just considered something that you did. I mean, you knew who your people were, and that was really, really important. So that is something that I really miss.
And a lot of people, even in Indian country, don't really understand, especially from the West, don't really understand what it's like to be Native on the East Coast. And oftentimes don't know much about Lumbees. I got my education about the Lumbee tribe from you and Lumbee Larry.
Larry Lumbee.
Lumbee Larry Smith.
I'm glad I met Lumbee Larry and made him go home.
Yes,
come home and start learning who his people are and being familiar with the communities. Lumbees live a long way from most other tribes. The closest tribe to us are Wakamasuan and Koheri.
Right.
You have to go a little bit further north to get to the Halawasaponi.
Right.
And Meherrin are way out on the coast. And Saponi are 3 hours west and north of us. The Eastern Band of Cherokee is 5-6 hours in, on the far western portion of the state. So all of the tribes in North Carolina are pretty isolated from each other. And, I show, when I teach about North Carolina Native people, I talk about how all of the Native people in North Carolina are on the very edges of the state. There's none of them in the central areas where the prime land is. All of us are like pushed out towards the edges of the state and in inaccessible areas, and we've been here like this, for probably the 1700s.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of history, and we had 200 years of contact before the 1700s, right? So that is the kind of long history that people in other places in the Midwest and in the West are just not familiar with having 300, 400 years of contact, 300 years without language, having a recognized dialect rather than a traditional language. So being of multiple tribes that have amalgamated and become this one thing, which is what Lumbees are. We are not one tribe descendant. We are multiple tribe descendant, So that's very different from what people in other states have experienced.
Yeah.
Obviously.
And the fact that the Lumbee tribe has been recognized by the federal government, but doesn't have any rights.
Right. Well, no services. Right. We do have, programming with our tribe. We do have a HUD grant because of the way that certain agencies recognize Native people. And, the federal government hasn't really made up its mind about who Indians are. Still trying to figure that out. And different agencies, will fund Native projects regardless of your federal status. And so that's why the Lumbee do have a HUD program, why we do have other grant programs. And the state of North Carolina also recognizes us. So we do have programming. Oh, there's a fly. There's that fly. We do have programming from the state. I think Shannon is frozen. Freeze up? I think she did.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Shannon, hold on 1 second. Let me see if we can... What happened here? That's all right. She'll be back. Unless her internet went completely down.
Oh, no. Does that ever happen?
Oh, hold on. She just sent me a text message. Our electricity went out. Oh, crap.
Oh, no.
So her electricity went out. Oh, no, Shannon. Okay,
is that the storm? Is that Delta coming up? She already went by us. It's been raining here.
It's been raining real bad. Now you're...
Real bad? It's not, real bad as a hurricane.
Well, you know how it is. California, if it rains hard enough to get the ground wet, that's real bad.
Yeah, I know. It's not. No. It's not California, thank God.
So how long have you been gone from California back home?
I left in 1989. Russell and I got married, and we moved in 1990, early 1990. I started at Cal State Long Beach in 1990 in January.
Okay.
So we moved. I'm getting my days I can't remember exactly when I moved it, when I started at Cal State Long Beach, but it was 1990, I think. I stayed at Cal State Long Beach till 1996. Then I went to the University of Chicago and got my doctorate degree completed in 2005. I had a daughter, raised my family up there. Already had a son. I had a son in 1992 in California. And then we moved back to in 2005 to San Diego. I got a job at San Diego State.
That's when you were working at San Diego.
And then I moved again in 2007 back home. I got the job here at the University of North Carolina at Pembroke.
So that's when you left, and that was the last time you spent time here in Cali.
Yeah. I've visited, but not spent any significant time since then.
Yeah. That's what everybody likes to do: visit and not spend significant time.
Yeah,
who's lived there? I mean, I'm born and raised, but
the traffic really ran me out of that state.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's one of those things. Living in paradise, this is this is paradise. You got to deal with the traffic, but. But anyway, I wanted to get to your time at Cal State Long Beach and talk a little bit about that, talk about Pavagna, talk about what your role at Long Beach was and in the Indian Studies program, maybe some of your work and your experience with my uncle, my mentor, Little Crow, Carl Bryant. Maybe you did or didn't work with him. Mm-hmm. But give us a little go on what you did at Cal State Long Beach.
I came there basically as a 2-for-1 thing. They wanted me to do 2 jobs and basically do work with students part-time, and then the other half of my job, I was going to be teaching teaching and directing the program, teaching in American Indian Studies. So C.B. Clark had left on leave, and they needed a director. Rick Denay was at UCR. He was he had the named chair, the Rupert Costo chair at our UCR. And so, American Indian Studies didn't have anybody to run it. And I had just moved there. I had a short stint at Orange County Community College, working with Indian students there. And I applied for the job at Cal State Long Beach, and they hired me, which was astounding to me because I didn't feel like I had any experience. I had a master's in education and a bachelor's.
What directed you to Indian Studies? And I mean, yeah, you're Lumbee, but what directed you there? What qualified you to start teaching in Indian Studies?
Well, I had a master's degree. They didn't really have a hard and fast rule about having a PhD in Native American Studies. They wanted someone with experience working with students more than they wanted someone with the educational background in American Indian Studies. I had some knowledge, enough to be dangerous, with my master's degree and with my experience at Carolina.
Sorry,
green screen's gone. With my experience at Carolina, the Carolina Indian Circle. So I had enough knowledge, I think they thought. I'm sure I didn't have enough knowledge now that I've been doing this for what feels like forever. You never have enough knowledge. American Indian Studies is constantly changing.
So what did
look
like when you got there? What was going on? How did the curriculum look? What was being taught to Indian country in Southern California then in the 90s?
Well, not a whole lot. I mean, there was the California Indian history class, which was just a couple of, I think 1 or 2 books was being used on campus. There was an Indian education course. Then I started teaching a co-taught course between Asian American, African American, Native American, and the Chicana Studies program, which was across all the professors taught the course together all at once, and we took turns lecturing. And I can't even remember. It was a comparative course between all of us. So I began teaching that a lot. Of course, we were teaching Native American Lit. Georgiana Sanchez was teaching that. We were teaching Native American art. Craig Stone was teaching that. And every once in a while, we would have other courses taught. Little Crow was teaching at that time. Everybody was adjunct except me.
So what was your experience with my uncle? With Carl?
Little Crow was funny, and I think he'd been teaching at Long Beach for a long time when I got there. Yeah. Okay, so he had already been doing all sorts of stuff, not just teaching at Cal State Long Beach, but he had a relationship with Riverside, the boarding school. So he was already running a church service, and working with the Indian Center in Orange County, and traveling powwow circuit. So he was doing a whole bunch of stuff at that time. I don't know if I would say that I knew him well. I mean, I knew him well enough, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Was Lester there when you came?
Oh, yeah. Lester was there. He wasn't doing a whole lot with the American Indian Studies Department at that time. He was working in social work, and he was working with the student Native American student organization, obviously. But he wasn't teaching in our program at all.
Yeah. I know, and you went there. What year did you start there?
I was trying to remember if it was 91 or 90, 1990.
Yeah, to 90 and then to 96. And then she went back.
Yeah. So, yeah, because I went to school there, I think it was 95 is when I started. 95, I graduated in 97, somewhere around there.
Yeah, you graduated after I left, like really quickly after I left. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And I learned American Indian education from you, and it was that class. And sorry, hopefully I'm not like interrupting the flow of what you guys were talking about. No. That class was instrumental for me, but not really me directly, more my grandmother, because I would take back to her what I had learned in that class about boarding school and education, and when language, how language was outlawed in schools, and all of these issues in education with American Indians. I took them back to her, and it seemed to help with her own closure about some of these issues that she didn't understand, in her family and what was going on during her lifetime. Because, there were different periods of Indian policy and different policy priorities about Indian education over time. So, she never went to school. She didn't go to school until, she took some art classes as an adult. But anything that she learned, she had taught herself. And she was mostly a domestic worker until she got old enough to be, considered. She was in the AFL-CIO because she was a factory worker and did things like that. But she always had issues with, why things were the way they were. And me going to your class and learning those things, I was able to bring that back to her. So I was always grateful for that class and that book. And I was actually looking for the textbook. I still remember it.
I have no idea which one it was.
Oh my gosh, it was blue and I think yellow and I should have found it, but I didn't find it. It's in my.
I think I got that one here somewhere.
You do not. You do not. I saw Melody Lopez on our chat room saying hello. And April Skinnis.
Okay.
Yeah, saying
April hello. So I wanted to get to Pavugna. Now, a lot of things were going on with Pavugna right during your time there, because that's when I think there was a lot of discoveries being made, sites were being opened up, and then they opened up a whole exhibit, I guess, or something there. I mean, it became a big archaeological dig. Were you involved in that at all, or do you recall how it all went down? And
well, from what I remember, I don't remember it ever becoming a dig. I think that was threatened. They definitely wanted to build on the site. The campus did. When I came, it was basically an unused area next to, I think, the Japanese garden was close by. And I hadn't really, I didn't know anything about it really until the campus started saying we're gonna develop this area and we're gonna build. I don't remember what exactly it was they wanted to build on, but of course the campus claimed there was nothing there.
Now we're Marianne's getting stuck. There you are.
And they claimed there was nothing on the land, that it was just an old Mexican was buried there. And the funny thing was, how can you tell ethnicity, based on a person's teeth and bones? And I mean, really. But I think Miss Robles, and I cannot remember her first name to save me. I want to say it was Dolores, but that's probably wrong. She was there, and she started her basically her occupation of the land to make sure that no construction started, to make sure that no bulldozers came in overnight, and she was out there every day on the land. And Lester and I would go and sit with her. I remember doing that a couple times. But I really, the office,
Lillian.
Lillian Robles.
Yeah, I think the community wanted me to have students out there every day protesting. And my response to that was, if students want to go out there and protest, they can go. I'm not going to say that they have to or coordinate protest of any kind. I was like, students can do that. Yeah, I worked there, and I was like, well, if they want to, they can. But I really didn't think that was my place to decide for them. And because we had a lot of students who were not California native, and didn't have a connection to that land and to that issue. And so I really felt like that should be more of an endogenous type of reaction, something that just comes up on its own rather than something that I create. And I didn't, and I'm not California native, I didn't really feel it was my place to be the person coordinating a protest like that. So it was kind of a betwixt and between, the community versus the university versus the students. And it worked itself out.
It did.
It worked itself out.
Yeah.
Well, the school never built there, and then they did, I guess, make it a sacred site, from what I understand.
Yeah. What they did was they did honor it, as a sacred site, and they were, I think there were ceremonies. I recall ceremonies happening
Little Crow
there.
conducted ceremonies there.
Yeah, I recall like a brush arbor almost being built there. For ceremonies. And so I really think that the university, I don't think that has become an issue again. I don't think that they lost their memory of what the land was.
No. There's a recent news article that the university has dumped trash or something.
Yeah, I saw that.
So
I saw that.
Right. So it seems like there are some that are still forgetting and have to be reminded about that area. And what I liked about what some folks are doing is they have shirts and stuff that say Cal State Pavugna.
Yeah, I saw that somewhere.
Yeah.
Somebody who said I worked at Cal State Pavugna. And I think that was April Skinnis put that in the alumni newsletter. Mm-hmm. So that was the first time I'd seen it. So that was interesting.
Yeah. And Long Beach is such an interesting area because it's one of those areas during the relocation area where a lot of Indians were relocated from the rest, so Long Beach and Los Angeles. So there was really a strong pan-Indian community in that area, along with the people that had already always been there.
Yeah. And there was a big tug of war, I think, between people who were relocation Oklahoma people and the California Native people. There was a little bit of a rift between those two because the relocatees from Oklahoma, they were mainly federally recognized groups. A lot of the groups in California were not federally recognized, or they went through a period where they had to regain federal recognition. And when I got the job as Director of American Indian Studies, I got, both reactions. I got the federally recognized people who said, oh, you're Lumbee? What's that? And, oh, I thought you were all Black. And then I also got the California Native people who said, oh, it's so good you're here. We're so happy that you're Lumbee because you understand. So I got both reactions. So, I was happy that to be there with non-federally recognized people and to for them to think that I represented them in some way. I was glad.
Yeah.
And that's always another issue when you have, other natives from different tribes coming into areas and then them being, because we don't like to speak for others, especially other tribes, if we're not asked to be
right.
there,
Right.
It's just how we are, and in other cultures, I think it's okay. People just kind of step in and start, but in Native cultures, you just, if you're asked in the right way, then you can speak for somebody. So stepping in and starting to speak for others is it's a touchy area for
it
Native.
is. It is.
So not to change the subject, but Marianne, I don't know if we got into this yet during my disappearance. The electricity just went off. I don't know what happened.
Is Hurricane Delta visiting you?
It's been, it's raining. So It's been raining on and off, but it's nothing, nothing major is going on that I'm aware of. Anyway.
Same thing has been happening here all day.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's up here.
So how did you get involved in social work? What was it about? What was the draw there? And how did you get there?
That was all Lester.
Was that Lester? So you knew Lester Brown. So we're talking about Lester Brown, who's Cherokee. Was a professor of mine.
He claimed Cherokee. I really don't know, and I don't think he does either. Both of his parents were orphans. He was definitely a Native person. I knew his family and pictures from home and the area in South Carolina where they were from. So I believe that he may have been Cherokee. He could have been Catawba. He was in that middle area, South Carolina. So I think he was a South Carolina Native person, but he claimed Cherokee.
Yeah. And so he was in Chicago. I mean, where was he?
When I met him?
Yeah.
I only met him at Cal State Long Beach.
Oh, really?
I never knew him when he lived in Chicago or in New York. Yeah.
So he's the one who encouraged you to go get your doctorate in social work up in Chicago.
Well, I got my master's at Cal State Long Beach.
Yes.
While I was working there, I got my MSW. And from there, he said, you really should go and get a doctorate. I had been thinking about it. for, since my son was born, I'd been thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it really was the only way to move up in a university to, to get tenured. The whole time I was there with the 1990s, we were having recession after recession, right?
Yeah.
Where we would, they were making cuts to education, and it seems to me that they always wanted to make across the board cuts when I was at Cal State Long Beach. And when you think about it, that's a really unfair way to cut programs.
Mm-hmm.
When American Indian Studies was the smallest program, we were independent. We didn't have any department over us. But if you cut us the same way you cut a big program, right? The big program hardly feels it. You cut a class from AIS, and every class is precious. Right. And you definitely know that you lose one class and you're not able to complete a minor or concentration anymore. Right. So those across the board cuts were just murdering us. And I knew that I needed to get out and get a degree that would allow me to have more stability, more assurance that I was actually going to stay and not be cut. Because, after a while, there's nowhere else to cut except cut the program head and then attach it to another department if you're going to keep it.
Yeah. Well, what was it about social work in particular that attracted?
Well, I thought about, I had a degree in counseling. I had a master's in counseling. Yeah. And I didn't want to go into education. Every Indian that I knew had a PhD in education. And I wanted to stand out, be different. And I didn't know another PhD, American Indian, in social work. I didn't want to get a degree in American Indian Studies. I should have, but I was afraid to, because I was afraid that I wouldn't be hired, that I just wouldn't be able to get a job. I'd get a PhD and there'd be no jobs because American Indian Studies is so last hired, first fired.
Right.
Of situation.
What you were teaching me is at that time, the government really wanted to move towards, and university really wanted to move towards that multi-ethnic studies.
Right.
Mix it all together in a salad versus
which is completely inappropriate for American Indian Studies because Indigenous people are not. We did not come here. We were not brought here. We are here, and we are the caretakers of the land, right? We are the people who everybody, came to. We're the people who made all of this possible. Really, we are. So it's not appropriate at all, and because of our different relationship with the federal government, it's inappropriate to look at us as the same as other ethnic minorities in the United States, because they do not have political status, and we do. And we have to keep reminding people that we are not just a racial group. We are not just a racial group. The services that we are receiving, they've been paid for. They have been paid for in land and in bloodshed. So our ancestors paid for the services that we are receiving now. In a multiple number of ways. And that is not true for every ethnic minority in the United States.
Right.
It is a clear difference, and we need to keep that at the forefront, especially when we're thinking about the threat to the Indian Child Welfare Act and other types of laws where various groups are attacking Native Americans, saying that we're just a race and we have these special laws and there's nothing backing them up, and we shouldn't be giving Native people special consideration because they're of their race, and they don't want to acknowledge that government-to-government status, and they don't want to acknowledge the genocide and the land, the treaty rights, and all of the things that tribes had to go through in order to receive those reparations. That's what they are. That's what federal recognition gives you, is it gives you reparations.
Mm-hmm. And I know you were working on the Indian Child Welfare Act a bit.
When I was in Chicago, I worked on it a little bit with not really on the act itself, but on foster parent rights, on getting the Chicago and the state of Illinois to recognize the rights of Native people there within their boundaries. It was difficult because Illinois is one of those states where they had a removal period, where they don't have any tribes recognized within the boundaries of the state. They have an urban Indian population with the Indian Center in Chicago, and that's really the only place that had federal funding for Native programming coming in on a regular basis, and it's still there. But they really didn't have that seat at the table in the state like they do in California, like they do here in North Carolina. So it was very difficult to get the state administration to acknowledge that they needed to really be vigilant around ICWA. Because it was a situation where, Native women would experience having some of their children placed with white families and some of their children placed with Black families. And, the social worker would look at the kid and make a determination. And so that sort of thing was going on. And Native families were really upset that their kinship was not being recognized.
Right. Yeah. And Illinois is one of, we've got a repatriation conference coming up. The Association on American Indian Affairs does. And Illinois is one of the worst states. There's more dead Indians in institutions than those institutions have ever allowed, on their doorstep. So Illinois is a very Illinois, Ohio, those states up there where Indians were removed, and the history there is quite unique and interesting that many of us don't know, and I don't know it that well. But I do remember you driving me around Chicago and talking about smallpox and that there's a feeling of smallpox wherever we go.
Yes,
people have been possessed and cursed. Right, the area has been cursed because of that treatment back in the day, way back in the day. But it was a really for me it was a strange place going up there in the university because it was so Gothic. And enormous. I had never seen anything like that before. It was like out of some haunted house. I couldn't imagine. It's like, Marianne, why are you going to school here? It's so scary.
I don't know. It was scary. I mean, it was the Gothic architecture was actually from the 1920s and 30s, and they built it to make the university look more older and more I don't know, academic. I don't know what you call it, austere than it really was. So yeah, to make it look like an Ivy League, the Ivy League of the Midwest is what the University of Chicago likes to call itself, the Harvard of the Midwest.
So were there other natives in the doing social work in the PhD program at all?
No.
So what did you work on issues, Indian country issues when you were doing your PhD? Did you bring those forward?
I worked with the Foster Parent Association there in the Indian Center. They were off and on in the Indian Center. I worked with Terry Strauss, and I met Ray Fogelson. I don't know if you know who Ray Fogelson is, but he was he's a big deal in American Indian studies. He testified before Congress and on behalf of the Lumbee. His doctoral student was Karen Blue. She wrote the book, The Lumbee Problem. And Ray was a professor in the anthropology department at the University of Chicago. Terry Strauss was one of his students, and she worked very closely with a lot of the Indian folks up there. And Indian Center was really dug into the Indian community there. I worked on, I wrote a piece in, I wrote two or three pieces in a book on Native Chicago, one on the population shift because of, tribes in Wisconsin being able to own casinos and start casinos, and the shift in terms of jobs in Chicago, where it used to be a lot of Native people went to Chicago because there were a lot of low skill and no skill jobs, and a lot of the Menominee, the Ho-Chunk, the tribes in Wisconsin were coming down into the city for work. And it really changed, I guess, starting in the 1990s. Native people were moving home they were moving back to the res because there were jobs, for them, and Chicago didn't have the jobs anymore. And Chicago was a multi-generational Indian community, urban Indian community from the, before World War II, probably starting in the 20s and 30s. Wow. So it was a multi-generational Indian community there on the north side, where the Indian Center is. And it was, of course, a relocation destination, and they had an Indian alley. And so that was important. I went to various, I went to little powwows everywhere, and I went to the Darcy McNichol library stuff. They would have speakers, and they would have winter storytelling and stuff like that. So I pretty much did a whole bunch of stuff with the Indian community there, but had to quit everything to finish my dissertation and get out of there. Because it was, it will, consume you.
That's what I've heard. And that's why I just ended up going to law school, I think, and not following that path like I thought I was. But
it's
so then,
a very difficult path.
Yes. And then I'm not, I don't think I could have done it actually. And then you came back home, right?
I went to San Diego State for 2 years.
That's right.
I got the job right out of the doctoral program, and then I came back here once the chair position opened up.
Yeah. And how had things changed since when you?
Hugely changed. University of North Carolina at Pembroke was really growing in the meantime since I had left. It had gone from being like a 3,000 population campus to almost 5,000-6,000.
Wow.
Now we're almost at 8,000. So huge differences. Multiple colleges. We have a school of business. Now we have health sciences. We have College of Arts and Sciences and the School of Ed. So huge difference since I had left.
Was Pembroke connected to the Lumbee tribe somehow?
Well, Pembroke was started as a school for Indians to train teachers. It was the first university that was started for Indian and was totally segregated until 1952.
Oh, wow.
So it was Indian only. So it wasn't a tribal school. The state of North Carolina actually funded it. But the state didn't have a whole lot of faith in the Indian community here. When the school was initially in 1885, when they gave $500, they had conditions on it. They said you have 2 years to spend the $500, and you can only spend the money on teachers, teacher salaries only. So the community had to raise money, and that was W.L. Moore had to raise the money to build a building, and then they had to get school supplies, and they had to hire a teacher. And W.L. Moore became the first teacher. He was actually Waccamaw. He had married into the Prospect community, and his descendants are still there now in Prospect. But he became the first teacher. He gave $200 of his own money to start the school. That was $200. The state gave $500, and W.L. Moore gave $200. So
wow. He had to live off that for 2 years.
Can you believe that he gave almost half as much as the state did? I mean, it's just ridiculous. But he went around and he convinced other community members to give and to help build the school. And it was a one-room schoolhouse. When it started, it was all elementary school. And once you graduated, you could teach. So, my grandmother went to the 8th grade, or I think it was the 8th grade. And she told me that was the most you could go to when she was coming up. Wow. So My mother actually graduated from high school, and she went a semester at UNCP. My dad never graduated from high school. He said he went a lot to school, but he never graduated from school. He was the third oldest on a family of 14, and he was always on the farm. He was one of the oldest boys, so basically he was a farmer.
And that was the main economy out there, right? Was farming, and so the Lumbee were farming. That's how they were making their way.
Always farmers.
So what are the students there like now? Are they mostly Lumbee? Are there people coming from out of state going to school at Pembroke?
We only have about 14% of our population who is Native American, who is identifying as Native American. And we only count sole identifiers. So if you identify as multiple races, you're not in our 14%.
Oh, wow.
So we have plenty of Native people who identify as more than one race. And so I have no idea. I wish we could count everybody who was Native and Native and something else, together, and really get a good count of that.
Yeah, that's a little unusual. Do you find that in other schools, or why would they not count?
I'm not sure. I don't know if that's like a system-wide thing, but we basically have, you can check as many boxes as you want. It's like the census, right?
Right.
When you come in, and it's self-identification. We do have to have, your tribal enrollment card in order to qualify for some of the state grants for state-recognized tribes. We have some financial aid for state-recognized tribes, so you have to have your tribal enrollment card for that. But when you're checking the box for admission, if you just checked Indian, then you're in that category. But if you checked Native and white, or Native and African American, or Native and Puerto Rican, or whatever, then you're not.
Interesting.
I think it's odd.
It is odd because,
but I have no idea. I'm sure it's system wide, because we have a situation where you can apply to multiple UNCs at the same time, and I think that's a universal.
It's a state thing, yeah.
I think it is a state thing. I'm not sure.
North Carolina.
I think it's a UNC system.
Not to bag on North Carolina, but we know that they lean,
Well, we're supposed to be a purple state, so.
Oh, you guys got punched in the eye.
Yes. We're beating each other up down here.
Yeah, I know these states that are turning now. They're saying Texas is a purple state.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to believe, but I guess it is. With Austin is very, very blue. And then, it depends on where you're at. It really depends on where you're at.
Yeah.
So what are your students wanting to learn? What are the classes? What are they doing? I'm so far away from being in school, and I'm seeing a lot of young people coming out of school, looking for work or going into high. What's it like to be an undergrad student now? What kind of classes are they taking interested in?
The biggest majors at UNCP are criminal justice, sociology. We got a lot of people coming in. They want to be nursing. They want to be in nursing. They don't always stay there because it's very, very competitive, and it can't make below a C in anything. and a lot of biology majors, a lot. People want to do all sorts of things. I hear forensic biologist. They see CSI on TV and they want to do that. But then a lot of our American Indian Studies majors go on to law school, like you did. Several of them have gone on to graduate school for other things, history. We have a lot of people doing double majors, and I have even one student right now is doing a triple major. I'm like,
I don't understand that.
I don't either. I say get one degree and move on.
Yeah. Yes.
Move on with your life. We do have an Indian education program here, so a lot of our students try to get employed there with what they call youth development specialist in the Indian education program. And some of our graduates work for the tribe in tribal offices, different services. So our majors have gone on to do all sorts of things. Most of them are in education. One of our majors right now is a principal. We've had, one of our majors go on and get a PhD in history. There's one of our majors now who is at UNC Chapel Hill in the history department in the PhD program. She went to Temple and got her MA. So I've got a student right now who's at University of Arizona. Rob Williams recruited her, so she's out there getting her law degree. So a lot of them go through the New Mexico program, the law program in New Mexico. That's like a precursor to law school. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah, PLSI.
Say it again.
PLSI.
Yeah. PLSI. I can never remember it.
Yeah, I don't know what it stands for.
But our students think it's great and it's really helpful. And I've had 2 students go through it so far, and I'm sure I'm about to have another one. She just took her LSAT in my office suite the other day, and she's probably going to go through that program too.
Did you ever hear the story of how I ended up in law school?
I did not.
Well, it's
I knew that you applied.
It's Lumbee Larry's fault, and it might be an offensive story. You want to hear it anyway?
Sure.
So I'm walking around the quad at Cal State Long Beach, beautiful grass, and it's always a beautiful day in Southern California. And there's Lumbee Larry sitting on the grass. He's got this big blue book, it's probably like this thick or something, and he's looking at it, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And it's like, aren't don't you have a class, or aren't you supposed to, or you want to come have lunch, or whatever it was? And he's like, "No, I really have to study." And for what? And well, the LSAT. Well, what's the LSAT? Because I had no clue what the LSAT was.
I never even knew he took the LSAT.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's another story. So
okay.
He was studying for the LSAT, which is what you take. It's like a pre-entrance exam that scores you, that you have to report to the schools that you're trying to get admitted to.
Right.
And I'm like, really? You're going to go to law school? Like, how did you decide that? And so I'm asking him all these questions. And finally, I look back at him and I'm go, well, Larry, if a Lumbee can go to law school, well, then I can. And it really was my decision making.
That's hilarious.
That's why we have lawyers like we have.
And there's so many Lumbee lawyers, Shannon.
Well,
there's so many.
Yeah, well, and there's Larry and I both took the LSATs together.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I don't know why he never ended up going, but
he never ended up going.
Yeah, for some reason I did.
Okay.
What was that, bro?
Lumbee Larry the lawyer. It wouldn't have went over well.
Too many L's.
Too many L's.
But yeah, that was how I decided to go to law school. In addition to Troy's class on federal Indian law, so there was a federal Indian law class at Cal State Long Beach at that time. So it was really interesting to read what you think is like a logical, reasoned legal argument, and you think it's going to end up in a certain direction, and it always seemed like, well, all the facts are there. Of course, the Indians are going to win this, but it never. That's not how legal cases work.
Not always.
They're just crazy insane, and that's what drew me to the practice of law, because it was just crazy in some way. And so did social work, did that attract you because of the crazy Indians that you wanted to help? I mean, was there because
no, my idea was that social welfare policy made Indians crazy. And that is why what needed fixing, not Native people. Native people didn't need fixing, but the social welfare policies that were being implemented to assimilate them, to make them more palatable for American society, was actually making them mentally ill. And so my idea was not to provide mental health services, but to go into the social welfare policy area, which I found pretty fascinating. And now I'm kind of flipping on that a little bit, thinking that mental health services is something that I'm thinking about more and more. I'm wishing that I had gotten my LCSW, my license, just for the versatility, but also because of the dire need for mental health services from an Indigenous perspective.
So are you getting to get into some of this research on historic trauma, or?
What I started doing and haven't finished is I put together a survey. I collected data and was looking at the Jim Crow experiences of Lumbee elders.
Oh, wow.
The Jim Crow experience in the South for African Americans has been labeled a historical trauma period. And one of the dissertations that I looked at on that topic was identifying all of the physical violence directed at African American people during that period. But some of that physical violence was directed at Native Americans in the South, in the Southeast. Oh, yeah. And I really would like to interview more Lumbee elders. I really would, for all of the tribes that are non-federally recognized in North Carolina, to understand their experiences during that period, because Native people, like I already said about my dad not being able to go to trade school in North Carolina. Well, you couldn't go in the front door of many establishments. You might be able to go in the back door and purchase, but you couldn't eat in the restaurant. There's a story on the website for the Southeast American Indian Museum. A Lumbee elder who was at the Ku Klux Klan route in 1958 when the Lumbees ran the Ku Klux Klan out of Robeson County. And she told the story of having gone to a drugstore in, I don't know if it was in Red Springs or in Lumberton, and she passed out. And her husband was not allowed in the front door to pick her up. He had to drive his car around to the back of the store and then come in the store and pick her up off the ground. And she laid on the ground that whole time because no one would assist her because she was Indian. And they would not allow her husband to come in the front door, which would have been the quickest way to go in and get her. He had to drive his car around to the back and go through the back door.
Yeah. It was like that in Texas too.
Yeah.
It was that way, even Midwest, South,
right.
Midwest.
Yeah, your family must have some stories like that, Roy.
Well, my grandmother told me the exact same stories. She said that the laws for Indian people was just like the laws for Black people. They were treated the same way. The places that they could eat, the places that they couldn't go in, the front door thing, all of those things, and and then the poverty was just, on top of it all, back in the 30s during the Depression and all that, it made all that exasperated or whatever. And so I got a lot of those stories about, how they had to make do, and the big families they all had, same with my family. We had, 12 on one side and 14 on the other, and there's millions of cousins and the whole thing. And, how they had to survive out there and how they had to act as Indian people, versus, but it was just a way of life. They didn't, there wasn't a lot of fighting over that going on back then. There wasn't a lot of protests. There wasn't a lot of people standing up for them at that time. So they have a different mentality about it. When I talk to my grandmother and she tells me these stories, she doesn't speak of it like the generation before, us, which was, in the 60s and 70s and, the 50s, 60s and 70s. They speak differently. They speak about an era of, awakening and civil rights and movement and all those things that happened and standing up for yourself and aim and those things. My grandmother's stories, my grandfather's stories are, my grandfather doesn't even speak a lot about them. He won't even, because of the things that he went through, but they're the way that those generations speak is completely different. Their stories are different because they didn't have activism back then. It was, you just had to do what you had to do,
Right.
So I want to bring up on the share screen here, University of North Carolina at Pembroke. Let's see, I think I have honoring Native foodways up here, but I've also got, I can do some other things here if you want to highlight anything.
I don't see no fried bread. Okay.
Yeah, I don't see any fried bread.
That's Sean Sherman, who came a couple of semesters ago when his book was out. He came and he prepared that dish during Honoring Native Foodways, which is like a potluck that we do every November. This November, we're going to be doing a virtual one where we're giving recipes and talking about food. This is what we try to do is get students to take a taste of everything. There's Millard and some of the Native elders who come every year.
That looks
There's
so
your collards and your chow-chow.
Yeah, some grains.
And there's some tater bread on there and cornbread and just sweet potatoes. And there's a whole bunch of the elders who come in every year and make that Honoring Native Foodways happen. Food comes from across campus. People just, volunteer and bring in food. And we try to give a small taste of everything to everybody
That's awesome. And it looks
And
like
we
you have
strongly encourage no wasting. Tasting, do not waste.
yes. And I see there's a download here. You can get recipes if this is making anyone hungry. Go to uncp.edu, go to the American Indian Studies Department to get those recipes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got a Native American speaker series there.
Yeah.
There again.
John was one of our speakers, and I think we have multiple. I don't know if you could go through more than one there, but there's the gallery of past speakers. Yeah. This guy is a rice farmer in South Carolina. Is famous, Glenn. I think his name is Roberts. Forgetting his last name, but
it doesn't say.
And that is, oh Lord, I forgot her name. She's in at Colorado Boulder. Tanea Winder, I think her last name is. And of course, Walter Eckelhawk, who came with his book. And who else have you got there? Yeah, Winona LaDuke. Awesome. I think she's come more than once. This is Ed Verlander. And this is a woman, I'm not going to remember her name, from a Haudenosaunee Nation. And there's some of our students posing with her and Dr. Halliday. That is, veteran and Northrop. I want to say Jim Northrop, who is, he's a sugaring guy, tapping those making maple syrup up there in his nation. And I cannot remember who this is.
That's okay. I mean, it really looks like you all have a strong Native student population, and that you're doing a lot to help support them.
Yeah, we are. I don't know if you can, is that Philip Red Eagle? That might be Philip Red Eagle. Yeah, I think that is from Pacific Northwest. Joy Harjo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's
come more than one time.
Yeah, she's actually doing, I think, a live event on Zoom tomorrow from Montana University for Indigenous Peoples Day.
That's Reggie Brewer. That's Ashley Minner, who's at in Maryland. She's Lumbee. I don't know who this is right there. But yeah, we've had a lot of folks all over Indian country actually comes to Pembroke, believe it or not. And it's really the Southeast Indian Studies Conference, where we highlight people who are doing work. Either they can be community students, scholars from across the country come, and they have to be presenting on Southeast people who were here and been removed to Oklahoma, or people who are still here. Those who've been left behind, as we say.
Wow, that's great. There's a great picture of the old Maine.
In the chat room, Wabanaki says Alexis Rayana. Keep my memory. A Lumbee sings a song for MMIW. Our song video. Mary just reminded me of her being of the tribe herself.
Yeah. Alexis, her last name is Jones. She's from a Native community here, and she's got a beautiful singing voice. She's a professional singer, and you can see stuff by her on YouTube.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. So do you go to Lumbee powwow?
Yes. It's been a while since I remember going to one, because the powwows happen at the same time as our graduation. Oh. So if I go to graduation in the morning and I'm good about it, I can get to powwow in the same day, right? And it's always the weekend that I'm grading a lot. So I have to limit the time at powwow because I got to go home and grade. And so I usually end up going a little bit on Saturday and a little bit on Sunday, and that's it. I never make it Friday night because that's always, I'm always doing something with school. And graduation is that Saturday morning. So the Spring Moon Powwow is always on the first weekend in May. Mm-hmm. That's the tribal powwow. The campus powwow is in March, and I go to those. That's a big event. I don't know if we have pictures.
I didn't see any on the website.
Yeah. You probably have to go to the Southeast Indian Studies program and see powwow pictures there. So yeah, I go to powwows.
That's cool. Yeah, and also there's great food there. That was this is what I miss about living up here is I miss all the southern food, the food that I used to get in Oklahoma. The it's just I don't get a chance to go go to the south or southeast that often to get some good food, and Roy ain't making me anything. Though he's venturing off into Hawaiian dishes now, from what I hear.
Okay.
Yeah. Indigenous. We need some more Indigenous recipes. I'm going to download that. I need to start making something.
Okay.
I need some cornbread. So, Roy, ask some questions. I feel like I've kind of dominated the interview here.
No, I mean, I was trying to, see if there was any connection with the Pavagna. I don't know. I'm not a college guy, so I have trouble trying to ask questions of professors and you, Shannon, you guys. I know culture. I know people. I try and dig that out of you guys. And so school is not my forte. But I like to hear how how your Lumbee culture is mixing with your schoolwork and with where you're living now. Have you started to embrace that more? Has it started to become more part of your family's life now that you're back home?
Well, I don't think it ever wasn't a part of our lives. I mean, I came home a lot, brought my kids home. They got shipped off to family when I was doing my exams. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law came and got my kids and took them for a week when I was doing my exams at the University of Chicago. So I feel like I don't ever felt disconnected. Of course, it's different now because I teach Lumbee history and culture, which is one of the required courses for the department. So I feel a different connection. I feel much more like I have to be on top of that game in terms of the knowledge and the historical knowledge as well as the cultural knowledge of what's going on in terms of Lumbees now. So I don't feel like there was a disconnect, but I definitely feel much more of an immersion.
Well, yeah, like, we're never disconnected from anything, of course.
Yeah.
But, now you're in place. You're at that place where your tribal lands, you're at place, and place is important. And sometimes that gives us, like you said, not another connection or more connection, but an immersion. So you're immersed.
Right.
And I find it interesting that they're actually requiring that you teach a Lumbee class. That's cool. That sounds interesting in and of itself.
We're actually trying to get a requirement in what we're calling Indigenous communities and cultures at UNCP. They've never had a requirement for all graduating students at UNCP.
I like it.
And it has been a fight. UNCP is not a tribal school. And the curriculum is basically the majority white curriculum that you'd find at any school, university in the system, except that we have an American Indian Studies department. We've had one since 1972, we were the only one in the Southeast for years and years and years. And then the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill started their program. Raina Green, Theta and Mike Green Theta Purdue started the program there at Chapel Hill. Melinda is there now. Melinda Maynor Lowry is there. And they have an American Indian Center at Chapel Hill now. But we're still the only standalone department in American Indian Studies in the Southeast. And they have, theirs is with underneath the umbrella of American Studies. So that's what makes it a little bit different.
Well, I mean, in my opinion, I think that all schools should be required to teach Native American history and the local history of that area's tribe, so that the people that are living there can get an in-depth history of the people that actually were from there or still survive there or still are part of it. And also,
it's gonna be a long fight too.
but it should be on the table. It should be. I mean, because today when you talk to white culture people today, they still have the same old ideals that they've always had. The same, Indians were savages and they came across the land bridge and all of these strange, weird ideas that have come from, the history books from this here country. They're still being taught to this day, and they've been debunked a million different times. They've been exposed as lies. They've been exposed as propaganda. And yet still in what's supposed to be the good old USA, we're still teaching this crap to, our citizens, and they still are being lied to about Indian country. And it just seems like it's taken, this school system has taken so long to catch up to, culture, because culture knows that. I mean, you talk to anyone, they don't know the history. They don't understand it because they're not part of Indian country, but they know, the Indians got a raw deal. I feel really bad about that. That was just horrible. But wait, what do you understand about that, or what do you know? Well, no, just from what I've seen in movies, and Hollywood's about the only place that they've ever gotten their information, and it should be the school systems. But of course, the government still does not want to give in and actually teach the history of Native, Indian country and what's been going on. So I think it's a fight that should continue to be, fought.
Well, I think, Roy, you're in a good place in California that
yes.
California Native people, I don't know how well how successful they've been able to get it into the public schools, other than that little fourth grade requirement they used to have where everybody would make a mission diorama, mission school diorama. Do you remember that?
My kids just did it. My kids just did it in the last few years. Okay, and I've got another one getting ready for school, so I'm sure he'll do it too.
How did you handle that, Roy?
We sat down and we talked, and my daughter brought it home, and I said, "Oh, great." So I told her, I said, "This is what they're going to teach you." And I laid out the mission system and how awesome they were going to make this and how kind they were to the Indians and all that. And I said, and this is the real history. And these are the bodies that are buried on those mission lands. And this is why. And this is the slavery. And this is, the taking of the faith. And this is the taking of the children. And this is what this really stood for. So when you build this, we're building this to get you a grade because that's what the system wants you to do. But I want you to understand what the system is trying to tell you. And it's a lie. And so I explained it all to her. And I said, I don't need you, going to class and causing a ruckus or anything like that. Let them have their thing. But I want you to understand the truth. And this is what the truth is.
But
and
California
so
has such a
large
it. Indian population that they can make an impact on the public school system there.
But they didn't. And that was what surprised me, even here in California, because, it is so culturally diverse here, and cultural diversity is accepted all over. And we do have a very robust pan-Indian community, like our powwows are north and south, and the powwows are many tribes coming together, and everybody's sharing their cultures and sharing their special dances and sharing their special songs and sharing, unique individuality of each tribe. But I was really surprised that the school system here is just as dilapidated as the rest of the country. Just like you would see back east, they're still teaching the same old mission system. They're still making the kids build the models. And, this is such an awesome place, this mission here, and it's surprising that that's the way it is out here.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a state by state fight to make the curriculum changes that are needed. The school systems have suffered. It's really been gutted for charter schools, for private schools, and money that used to come to the public school is, being siphoned off for all these different things. And of course, it's been cut and to the bare bone. And but the curriculum fight has never transpired. I think Michigan might be, or is it Minnesota, that has a requirement? There's states out there that have requirements because of the large Native population actually fighting for those, and creating that curriculum.
Yeah. Washington State, I think, is undertaking that now. Governor Newsom in California just issued an order for like a truth and reconciliation type of commission. So I don't know if something may come out of that. That just happened at the end of last month. So there is kind of slowly a movement, I think, just because of the era we're living in now. But I'm surprised that, does Pembroke, do they recognize are there like placards or something talking about the history there at the university?
Oh, there's lots of discussion of the history, and there's lots of acknowledgement of the history of the school as an all Indian school, and advocated by the Indian community here, and then how it really wouldn't have been a school if it weren't for the Native community here. There's lots of acknowledgement, but that's different from having it come into the curriculum as a requirement.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's different.
Another level.
It's another level.
It's another level.
What is it? Honorable mention is one thing, but it being actually
right. Yes,
that's almost how it is out here. Is like it's honorable mention that everything's diverse, but when you look at the system, the school system here, I mean, in the colleges it's a little different. Like Cal State Long Beach was very had a very robust Indian studies program, but like the local schools here, and I mean, I'm just right across the way from Riverside Indian School, and it's the curriculum out here it's just like, wow, it's very strange. They still teaching the Pilgrims in 1492 and sailed the ocean blue and all that weird crap, So,
Yep. And so then Marianne, you get those undergraduate students who never had really public education and
No. So we get Pembroke's a mix of students from the local area, all ethnic and class, and native and non-native, and then we're also a magnet for students who are from Charlotte, Raleigh, and Durham, because students want to be away from home, but convenient to home. When I was an undergraduate, I went to Carolina for the same reason. I wanted to be away from home, but convenient to home. And so now we draw a lot of urban students here, and they don't have any idea. Many of them, when they come to Pembroke, they've heard of Lumbees, and they've heard that Lumbees will cut you. That's what they know about Lumbees.
Wow.
Yeah, they've been warned that we are not to be disturbed.
Cut a bitch.
Mild version. Yeah, if they know anything about us, that's what they know. They say Lumbees will cut you. It is true that Lumbees do like knives, but we also have guns, knives are a traditional gift for children. My children were given knives, grandparents and my brothers. A pocket knife is a gift, a utilitarian, so anyway, we have this reputation that precedes us for some of them, but for a lot of them, they had no idea. They were coming into an Indian community. They might have heard a little bit about it during the orientation, but for them it was just a diverse school, and so that was attractive.
Like Wabanaki said here, is indoctrination, not education.
Yeah,
that's how I feel that history is taught in the good old USA. Is it's an indoctrination, and that's what you hear. You hear them screaming about this. They want to change. They want to change. No, it has nothing to do with change. It has to do with telling the truth, versus this fake history that's been perpetrated on everyone of all all walks of life in the U.S. have been indoctrinated with this crappy historical narrative to keep the status quo. But I think they're losing it. I think they're losing their foothold. I think they're losing, with the things that we've been seeing with this BLM movement, which I think it's a good thing that it's taken on so much power and strength. Unfortunately, it had to be at the death of so many men and women. But it's made things start to move at hyper speed, because of that movement, we saw the mascot issue move full force ahead, and actually make some changes that, we were expecting to go on for another decade,
right.
And other things like the statues of these men that have been oppressive to all, other walks of life other than the status quo, are being taken down. The waving of racial flags and epitaphs and things like that are being frowned upon, where for years they were on television. Regular television was glorifying some of these images and things, and now they're not PC to do anymore. And it's really, I really like to see, the rock in the boot of all these guys, is they're so upset about all this change that they're being forced into, and the things are moving at hyperspeed right now. compared to how they've been moving. I can't say that it's, moving as fast as they should be moving, but comparatively to what has happened in the years past. But like I spoke of those generations, my grandmother's generation, it wasn't even imaginable to even speak of those things, to even think you could change those things. How do you deal with it? How do you live with it? How do you go on with your life? And it's just part of life. Deal with it, because the only thing you're going to get is dead if you try to do anything about it. Hey, let's fight and die for the right to speak our piece and have things change so that future generations can reap the benefits of that. That's what that generation started to do. And now here we are today, seeing things starting to change, seeing the old regime starting to lose hold of what's going on, because that's what's happening right now. And it looks like insanity, but really what it is it's the flailing of these oppressors, because they're losing their battle now is what's happening. And it doesn't look like they're losing, because they're fighting really, really hard to keep what they've got. So they've done some horrible, awful things. And I think that's why we're seeing racism bubble its ugly head up so much, because this is their death throes. They're flailing about so violently to try and keep what they've had a hold of for so many years, that the ugliest of them is coming out now. And I think they're going to lose. I think they're going to lose.
I wonder how long it will take. The speed at which the Redskins, they just turned on a dime when the FedEx,
when the pressure was on.
FedEx came out and said, you're going to change the name. After years and years of people protesting that name, FedEx, tapped them on the shoulder, and they turned on, in a week. The money talked to them. And
it was money and social pressure too.
That was breathtaking. Yeah, and social pressure too. But I think the pressure of the money was really what they didn't want to collaborate with Native people. They said to Native people, they said, we'll never change the name, never. But the minute FedEx said something, oh yes, we're going to consider it. We're going to conference right now.
Yeah, and like Wabanaki just said in the chat, the corporations make the change, and you're right. But what it all really comes down to is our individual political pressure on companies like FedEx and AT&T and all of the big names that are out there. It takes, if nobody did anything, if nobody cared, if nobody said, you know what, we're not going to buy your shit anymore if you continue to support that team. If the public doesn't pressure that, then those corporations don't have to make that decision. They don't have to force people's hand. But if enough public pressure gets on them, and there's a lot more of us than there are of them. There are a lot more people with conscience out there that want the truth, that want a more diverse society. There's more of us than there are of those billion-dollar corporations that are making the decisions. There are a lot more of us now. They have more money, but we have the buying power, which is
when are the Indians going to stop buying Walmart?
When they make Resmart.
They're not.
I don't know. I mean, we're so we've bought into so many of these corporations who are really harming us.
But it's a catch-22, because look, I mean,
do you shop at Walmart, Roy?
I have to. I can't go shop at, the what do you call it? The malls. I can't go to the malls and buy retail stuff. I gotta shop just like everybody else, and make a dime fit where a dollar's supposed to go, which my wife is very, very good at. And I'm not a wealthy guy, so there's a more month at the end of the money every month, and we got to make things work. And I know that most of America's like it, especially right now, since everybody's out of work and struggling and having a hard time. So you're kind of stuck doing it. So it's a catch-22. I mean, I don't know. I think it's going to be more brand oriented at first, like, no, we're not going to support this brand or that brand and use force pressure that way versus a whole. I mean, gosh, think about it. Everybody kind of has to shop at Walmart almost, because all of our, smaller stores are about wiped out in my area. It's been this whole pandemic has really wreaked havoc on the smaller mom and pop shops out here.
Well, maybe one day we ought to talk about what we really need, because I think, Walmart is made for people to buy more. Our consumer, everything is set up so that we'll buy things we don't need.
Do you know what I was thinking about that, Shannon?
What we need anymore.
Because, like, again, I go to my grandfather's generation, and they didn't throw anything away, and everything was used, everything was fixed, and we had a toaster for 50 years, but the damn thing still worked.
Right. Well, you got to know how to fix them.
Today, it's going to be broken in 3 years, and I can't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
So products are made differently. They've created this consumer thing where we've always, like, for instance, like, I wouldn't buy my kids a new cell phone if I didn't have to, because there comes a point where, like, my son is like, hey man, just keep using that same cell phone. It's fine. Well, Dad, it doesn't work anymore, because now they've made even cell phones where, just make a phone call, looking on the internet, whatever. Now you can't use them after a while because you can't upgrade the systems anymore. Yeah. They just kind of stop working, and products are made like crap. So you're constantly having to, upgrade it.
They're forcing you to do that. Yeah.
They're forcing this consumer, and then on top of that, you get, bombarded with, you got to look like the neighbors, and the kids got to look like each other, and they got to have the upgraded shoes and the upgraded clothes, and the whole culture war thing going on with all that. So, you're in the middle of that. And I got teenagers, so, my kids aren't.
California, it's worse in California. Yeah, it's 10 times worse in California.
Oh, it's horrible out here.
It's horrible in California.
Well, I'm just, part of me is grateful for this pandemic, because other than this nice sweatshirt that I just bought from Beyond Buckskin, which is a native-owned shop.
Yeah.
It's nice, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not shopping. I'm not going anywhere. Yeah. I'm not buying stuff, because so in a way, I'm kind of grateful for rethinking about what I'm bringing home, and whether it's stuff I really need. Do I really need to go out and buy something, or is there something else I can do? Can I make my living space better? Can I get rid of old stuff from Walmart because it doesn't last?
I know there's times that I'm thinking, I'm going to go to the thrift store and see if I can find something that's like from the 1950s.
Yeah. Estate sales, man.
It'll be made better. It'll be made better.
Oh, definitely.
I think going to the grocery store is as little as I can, and I do go to Food Lion. I don't go to Walmart. I do have to go to Walmart sometimes, though, for different things that I can't buy at Food Lion, or just
we have Trader Joe's out here, so that's our.
Yeah, I wish I had a Trader Joe, but no, Pembroke is never going to have a Trader Joe, as far as I know. I don't think I'll see it in my lifetime. Let's put it that way. Really limiting the number of times you go to the grocery store. The pandemic has really meant I'm at home as much as I can be. I have to go to work, but I try not to go out in much of anywhere except back and forth to work. So, yeah.
Well, I hope you're staying safe there, since you're having to do in person.
I am. And my students are wearing their mask, and our staff and faculty are. We've been very lucky that we haven't had to shut down the university. Although at the very beginning, I was, on pins and needles every day thinking, oh, when are they going to call us and say we have to shut everything down because we've got too many cases? But that hasn't happened.
That's great.
I don't know if we're not counting everybody, or if we've just gotten lucky, or I'm not sure. But we have been able to stay open, and we're hoping to do that for the spring as well. So it's been interesting. I don't think we'll ever go back to a lot of in-person stuff. I think the virtual world has become this space where it's easier, less travel. We were talking about that at the very beginning of the pandemic, where, people weren't traveling and the sky was blue again, and the birds were singing and wildlife was coming. I saw this hilarious thing about a raccoon at the White House. Did you see that?
No.
Some news reporter was having a fight with a raccoon during one of his reporting sessions from the White House. But there's all kind of wildlife again. The world is just waiting for us to leave, so it can take it back over again, So the pandemic has done that, allowed.
I should see the skies out here in California, because you can't ever see anything, but you could literally see LA from Corona. I mean, that's how clear it was, and it was like, whoa. I mean,
was that the first time in your life you were able to do that?
Ever. First time ever. And it was the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, was being able. I was up on a hilltop, and I could actually see it all the way to LA. And it was just, because you can't see, 30 miles in California, ever. Since, but
that's pollution.
Yeah.
That's pollution.
And when I fly a lot, so when I fly into the LA basin area, it's it's just this brown haze, that covers everything, and then you kind of drop through the haze, and it's like, oh gosh, here I am, I'm back in Southern California. It's awful, but it was clear, and it was just like, wow, this is amazing.
Before the fires.
Before the fire, and then the fires brought everything back, and now we can't see jack crap anymore. But
yeah. I have a theory, Roy, and Shannon, you can jump in on this too. My theory is that the the drilling that they're doing in Southern California and all up and down California into the aquifer, in order to have all these unnatural farming in the desert, in tons and tons and millions of acorn trees to make acorn milk. Almond milk.
Almonds.
My theory is that that's really, really drying out the state. That water is supposed to be there, like balancing things and really creating the possibility of life and sustaining the land. And without that aquifer water, I think California is really, really killing itself to make, the nut farms are making the high dollar.
They're big. They're big now.
Yeah.
My wife's family, they own walnut farms up there, and they expanded like no one's business over the last 10 years. I mean, just they've grown exponentially.
Wow.
And you're right. There is something going on out here with all of that, and I'm sure there's a price to pay. And whenever greed is involved, I think you're right. There's something. There's going to be balance. There's going to be balance somehow, some way. Mother Earth is going to get her balance, and
and we're not going to like it.
Something's going to have to pay, and that's usually us in some way or some form. And I work in industry out here, the manufacturing industry. I install equipment and machinery and whatnot, millwright. So I hear the the owners speak about, you know, the regulations in California and how horrible it is, and the environmental stuff is just killing their business. Of course, they're not leaving California; they're still here because, you know, you can work 24/7, 365, and you know it's just a place. It is a place to do business, even though they're complaining a lot. But there is going to be a price to pay if they continue to mess with the environment. And California is one of those places that is on the edge of, it can go either way, you know, because I think California is afraid. This guy Newsom, he's hated, you know, by all sides for some reason. I don't know why everybody hates Newsom so much. He has done some things for the state, but industry hates him because he's pushing these regulations, but they're not leaving. And I always hear this, we're getting out. I got to get out of California. We got to get out of California, you know, but they're still doing business here. And so, I don't know. I don't know what the fate of California is going to be, but it's at a tipping point where, but I think that there's so many green businesses that can actually, you know, capitalize on what's going on out here. And we talked about it with one of our other guests, and I can't remember his name. Do you remember, Shannon? We were talking about native you know, tribes and reses and making their industries and doing getting into green technologies and you know, biodegradable plastics made out of hemp and those kinds of things. I think that's where, you know, California and the Indian country could really score, is by, you know, getting into this new deal here. And I think that's going to happen. It's like, it's got to, you know, I mean, if we don't, we're in trouble. And it's no longer, it's a narrative to say that it's a lie, but I mean, the facts are the facts. We've got to start using renewables. We've got to start changing the way we manufacture things, the products and what they're made out of. So I don't know what California's fate's going to be, but they better start looking the right direction, or it's like you said, Mother Earth's going to make us pay one way or another. And we ain't going to like it.
Yeah. And, well, you know, it's a cycle, and Little Crow used to talk about how one day, you know, the earth is going to act just like a dog with fleas and is going to shake really hard. So you better hold on.
We're going to get shook off.
She's going to comb her hair. We're all going to come out. That's right.
And it can happen that easy.
Easy. Well, I've really enjoyed the conversation, Dr. Jacobs.
Thank you, Shannon.
So have I, Dr. Jacobs.
Counselor
it's very odd. Yeah, it's very odd as a more of an adult than I was back then in '95 or whenever it was you're a student. Shut up, Roy. So Roy was at all those powwows, at all of our Long Beach powwows. That's where I first met Roy. He was out.
They were good powwows.
Yeah, we had good powwows at Long Beach.
Yeah.
And so the
49ers were good too.
We should have a Cal State Long Beach reunion or something.
Yes.
We should get a Zoom call together for that.
Yeah.
You're not invited, Roy.
Come on, I went to all the snagging parties, all the powwows, I was at all that stuff.
He paid his dues.
I paid my dues. I listened to all you guys. I just didn't go to school.
Yeah.
A hanger arounder.
I was a hanger around it, that's for sure. I knew where to be.
But so what do you think? Anything else, Marianne, you'd like to tell us about?
No.
I'm really grateful for your time, and thank your husband and I think I saw an animal tail in the background.
That was Preston, my daughter's cat. Yeah.
Thank Preston for allowing you to some peace and quiet. But thank you so much.
And my daughter Flora's here, but she's not making an appearance. So
she's not even going to say hi to us. I probably wouldn't recognize her at all from.
No.
Way back when.
That was way back.
Yeah.
All right, Marianne. Well, thank you so much for hanging with us. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Roy. I'm glad to meet you again. Shannon, I miss you. Come back to Pembroke.
Yes. We'll eat it. What was that place called?
Eat it, Fuller's or wherever you want to go. Yeah.
Fuller's.
Okay.
Fuller's.
All right.
All right. Thank you. Bye, Mary.
Bye-bye.
That was nice. That was nice reminiscing.
Take you back to the way back.
Yes. Yes. It was
Hope she
very
jumped
nice.
out.
It was still always, because her and I aren't that different in age. So I always enjoyed being her student because I felt like I was more of an adult than most of the other undergraduates at the time. But anyway, whatever. Roy.
Oh.
So let's see. What do we need to wrap up with? I want to tell you about our guest next week. So next week, we're actually having another North Carolina Indian joining us. That is Earl Evans from Holowasaponi Tribe. I think Marianne mentioned Holowasaponi that are a little north of them. He's going to be joining us. Are you going to be with us, Roy, or are you going to have more?
At this point, it looks like I am. It looks like I am. I'm supposed to have a long week off period here, and maybe more like 3 or 4 days. But that could change. But we'll find out by Tuesday how that looks. I'll probably tomorrow I should know. But I am. Your
new job yet? Have you got your new job?
I interviewed with the last people this week.
Yeah.
And everything went well. So they are putting together an offer, and they had to create a new job description and all that good stuff. So, yes, cross our fingers to get me home and keep me from flying around the country.
Yes, that would be great. That would be great.
And I did want to say thank you again to the chat room.
Yes.
All of our folks in there chatting it up and contributing to the show. Without you guys, we wouldn't be a show. So appreciate you. Thanks for hanging out. And can't wait for next weekend. Now, who is our guest?
Earl Evans from Holowasaponi, who I just said, did you totally miss that?
I must have.
Like 2 minutes ago, I just said that, Roy.
Did you? Well, Roy, say it again, because
in a California state of mind over there. So Earl Evans is our guest next week. He is been working in Indian country forever. He is a citizen of the Holowasaponi tribe, which is a state recognized tribe in North Carolina. So we'll hear some more stories from North Carolina next week.
North Kakalaki.
Yeah, and Earl does have a little bit of a Southern drawl happening, so that'll be fun. Earl's a fun guy, so we'll have a fun and humorous conversation, I'm sure there. And tomorrow's Indigenous Peoples Day. There is, like I said, Poet Laureate Joy Harjo is speaking at University of Montana, and that's on Zoom for free. So find that online, Google it. And what else is going on?
Get out there and knock over a Columbus statue.
Knock over a Columbus statue, or just go into a stranger's house and say, "This is my house now." And if they ask you what you're doing there, you say, "Well, I'm celebrating Columbus Day."
I discovered it.
Yes.
I just discovered your Cadillac Escalade too.
Is that really what you'd pick, a Cadillac Escalade?
Well, I mean, it depends. It depends.
I'm looking for a 1961 Thunderbird.
Oh, well, if we're going to go there, then now I'm talking like, I'll take a 63 23 window Volkswagen bus. That's what I'll take.
Oh, okay. Then the respect. That's very good. I want a 61 Thunderbird. And I also want someone to volunteer to help us better produce this show. So I really would like to put more energy and time into making a really slick production, or at least something that we could throw some ads into, throw some music into. So if anyone's got any skills let us know. We'd love to have your advice and technical expertise on how we could do better on our show. So that's another thing I want besides my 61 Thunderbird. What do you got over there?
No, I was just saying, before when the show was going on, I texted Larry Lumbee.
Oh, did you?
I haven't spoke to him in years, and I got a message back. He said, "Still here." So maybe we can get Larry on the show too.
Yeah.
I'll have a talk with Larry, see where he's at.
That'll work. And then here's my son. My son is telling everyone to subscribe to this YouTube channel right now. He says, "Thank you, Wolfman Wolf." And while you're at it, you can subscribe to Wolfman Wolf as well. He has more subscribers than we do on his YouTube channel.
He's cool. He's cool. All right, Shannon. Who are we brought to by?
We are brought to you by the Association on American Indian Affairs, the oldest nonprofit serving Indian country, having its 6th annual repatriation conference, October 26th through 28th. You can find out more on our website, www.indian-affairs.org. Thank you for watching another episode of Red Hoop Talk.
Yep. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, guys, on YouTube. Thank you. Have a good one. We'll catch you on the next one.
See ya.
Bye-bye.